My sister was so jealous of my success that she spray painted my house, so I posted the proof, and the law exposed the evil she tried to hide. I've been holding on to this story for a while, and honestly, it still gets under my skin every time I think about it. Family drama and all that garbage, it's been my reality for as long as I can remember. I've got a younger sister, Jenna, who's 26 now. I'm 30. We don't get along, and honestly, I don't think we ever will. She's been the center of attention since day one, and I've always been the guy left standing on the sidelines. When we were kids, I didn't think anything was off at first. My parents used to be super supportive of me. I still remember my mom cheering like crazy at my soccer games and my dad bragging about my school projects to the neighbors. But everything changed when Jenna was born. Suddenly, it was like I didn't exist anymore. I tried hard to stay relevant. I started studying hard, getting straight A's, and joining clubs, not because I loved those things, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, I could earn back a little of their attention. But I didn't. No matter what I did, Jenna was always the star of the show. The crazy part? She didn't do anything special to earn it. She just had this way of soaking up all the attention, even when it wasn't supposed to be about her. Let me give you an example. On my 18th birthday, my parents threw me a party, and for once, I thought, hey, maybe today will actually be about me. Midway through the party, we got a call from the police. Jenna, who was 14 at the time, had been caught vandalizing some property with her friends. Her friends ran off, but Jenna got caught. My dad, being a cop, pulled some strings and got her off with a warning. By the time they brought her home, the party vibe was completely gone. I just sat there, cutting my cake by myself, while my parents lectured Jenna in the kitchen. That wasn't even the worst of it. There was a final straw that changed everything. When I was 21, I had just landed my first real job, and I was so excited. I came home ready to celebrate with my family, but Jenna had other plans. She showed up with her high school boyfriend and announced that they were engaged, this despite the fact that she was only 17. Just like that, my celebration turned into an engagement party. I was absolutely pissed, but when I tried to talk to my parents about how unfair it was, they dismissed me, told me I was overreacting, and said I should be happy for Jenna. That was the day I decided I was done. I didn't stay silent. I cut ties with my family after that. I know it sounds extreme, but I couldn't take it anymore. They never took my side, never stood up for me. It was always about Jenna. I didn't want to be part of a family where I was treated like an afterthought. The thing is, Jenna thrived on this dynamic. She loved being the center of attention, and she didn't care who she had to step on to stay there. Every time I achieved something, she found a way to one-up me or shift the focus onto herself, and my parents let her get away with it every single time. After I walked away, they tried to reach out a few times, sent some texts, left some voicemails, but I ignored them. It's been 9 years now, and I haven't spoken to them since. I heard bits and pieces about Jenna through the grapevine, mostly from relatives who still keep in touch with my parents. Apparently, she called off that engagement a few weeks later. Shocking, right? Turns out, it was just another stunt to grab attention. Classic Jenna. Looking back, I realized how much their favoritism messed with my head. It's not like I wanted to be the favorite or anything. I just wanted to feel like I mattered, like my achievements were worth something. But no matter what I did, Jenna always managed to overshadow me, and my parents. They encouraged it, whether they realized it or not. The thing about Jenna is that she's not just selfish, she's manipulative. She knows exactly how to play people, how to get them on her side. My parents were her biggest enablers. Every time she screwed up, they were right there to clean up her mess. Meanwhile, I was left to fend for myself. It wasn't easy walking away from my family, but it was necessary. I needed to put some distance between us to focus on myself for once. I started fresh. I got serious about my career, saved every penny I could, and poured my energy into building a life I could be proud of. My first goal was moving out of the apartment I'd been stuck in since college. It wasn't bad, but I wanted something that felt more like mine. 2 years ago, I finally made that happen. I bought a house, not just any house, a place that screamed, "This is what I've worked for." It had everything I wanted: space, privacy, and a fresh start. Moving into that house felt like crossing a finish line. I'd made it. But I wasn't naive enough to think I could let my guard down completely. Family has a way of creeping back in, whether you want them to or not. So, I made it clear to everyone, extended relatives, old family friends, you name it, that my new address was off limits. I didn't want my parents or Jenna showing up unannounced. I wasn't about to let them ruin this new chapter of my life. Meanwhile, life for Jenna wasn't going so great. I didn't have direct contact with her, obviously, but people talk. From what I heard, Her big business venture a few years ago was a complete disaster. She tried to start some kind of event planning company, which, honestly, is laughable considering how disorganized she is. It didn't take long for the whole thing to go under, leaving her drowning in debt. And, of course, Mom and Dad were there to bail her out, just like always. Jenna's failures didn't stop there. I'd heard whispers about her borrowing money from friends and even getting tangled up in some shady dealings. Nothing concrete, but enough to paint a picture of someone who was desperate and reckless. Recently, I'd been featured on the cover of a local business magazine. Apparently, it sparked a lot of conversations among our relatives. Jenna probably heard about it too, and I can only imagine how much that stung. She's always needed to be the star, and seeing me succeed must have been a punch to her ego. Then came the graffiti incident. 6 days ago, I was heading out for the evening when I saw it. My house, my sanctuary, the one thing I'd worked so hard to make mine, was covered in hateful, ugly words sprayed in bright red paint. It was everywhere, the front walls, the garage door, the windows, and even my carefully painted front door. Words like fraud and loser were scrawled across my property in chaotic, jagged letters. It wasn't just vandalism, it was a personal attack, a direct hit on everything I'd built for myself. I stood there, frozen, my keys dangling in my hand, trying to process what I was seeing. My first thought was, why? What did I do to deserve this? I felt a mix of anger, confusion, and heartbreak, all swirling into one overwhelming storm. As I walked closer, I noticed smaller details. The paint was still wet, dripping down the walls in uneven streaks. Whoever did this had just been here. My mind raced. Was it random? A neighbor with a grudge? But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A faint trail of muddy footprints leading away from the scene toward the sidewalk. They were small, like a woman's shoes. Suddenly, the pieces clicked together. I stormed inside and went straight to the security cameras. I'd installed them for peace of mind, never really thinking I'd need them for something like this. My hands shook as I rewound the footage, desperate to know who had done this. And there she was, Jenna. She'd tried to disguise herself with a hoodie, but I'd recognize her anywhere. The way she moved, the little glance she threw over her shoulder, it was unmistakable. The cameras caught her face just enough to leave no doubt. But that wasn't all. As I stared at the screen, I noticed something else, her handwriting. The jagged, messy letters on the walls matched exactly with the notes she used to leave around the house when we were kids. She used to write me nasty messages and slip them under my door whenever we fought. It was like her calling card. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Jenna didn't just want to hurt me, she wanted to make sure I knew it was her. At first, I didn't know what to do. My gut reaction was to call the cops. Vandalism is a crime, and she needed to face the consequences. But then I remembered who I was dealing with. Dad might be retired now, but he still had plenty of friends in the police department. Jenna had been using those connections to dodge accountability for years. I knew exactly how it would play out. I'd file a report, Dad would make a few calls, and Jenna would walk away without so much as a slap on the wrist. The thought of her smirking, knowing she'd gotten away with it again, made my blood boil. That wasn't good enough for me. I decided to handle it my way. I grabbed my phone and started documenting everything. I took pictures of every hateful word, every streak of paint, and every inch of damage. I even recorded a video of myself standing in front of the graffiti, explaining what had happened. Then I pulled up the security footage and took screenshots of Jenna in action. My heart raced as I pieced it all together, but I didn't hesitate. I was done staying silent. That night, I posted everything online. I didn't name Jenna outright, but I didn't need to. Anyone who knew us, family, old friends, distant relatives, could easily connect the dots. The caption was simple: this is what happens when someone can't handle your success. Proof included. The response was immediate. The post blew up within hours, gaining likes, shares, and comments faster than I could keep up. People were furious on my behalf. Strangers I'd never met were calling Jenna out for her behavior, and friends were flooding my inbox with messages of support. Even relatives who'd stayed neutral for years started chiming in, expressing shock and disgust at what Jenna had done. For the first time in years, I felt like I had the upper hand. Jenna wasn't going to walk away from this without facing real consequences, and if my parents wanted to defend her, that was their choice, but they'd have to live with the fallout. I spent the rest of the night repainting the front door and scrubbing off the paint where I could. It wasn't just about fixing the damage, it was about reclaiming my space. By the time I was done, I was exhausted but oddly satisfied. The graffiti was gone, but the post stayed up. This wasn't just about exposing Jenna, it was about standing up for myself. For too long, I'd been silenced, ignored, and dismissed. Not anymore. By the end of that week, I'd repainted the house and cleaned up the mess Jenna had made. It didn't cost me that much, and I didn't bother claiming anything. I somehow felt some satisfaction. The post stayed up. It wasn't just about exposing Jenna, it was about reclaiming my voice. For too long, I'd been silenced, ignored, and dismissed. Not anymore. That was my mantra as I watched my posts spread like wildfire. People I hadn't talked to in years were commenting, messaging, and sharing it. The support was overwhelming. Some strangers were flat out furious on my behalf, asking how someone could be so entitled and hateful. Others shared their own stories of family drama and betrayal, saying they related to my situation. For once, I didn't feel like the crazy one. Of course, not everyone was on my side. A few people tried to play devil's advocate, suggesting I should have handled it privately. But honestly, I'd been keeping quiet for years. I was done protecting Jenna from the consequences of her actions. She vandalized my house, and I had every right to call her out. Jenna wasn't happy about it, of course, not one bit. Her messages were all fake apologies and desperation. She kept saying, "Come on, we're family," as if that suddenly erased everything she'd done. She offered to pay for the damages, which was laughable considering she didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. The only money she had was coming from our parents, and we both knew it. I ignored the financial offer and demanded that she acknowledge her actions and publicly apologize for the damage. I told her I would only consider deleting the post after she did so. She flipped. She said it wasn't fair to ask her to humiliate herself like that. Humiliate? No, it was accountability, something she'd never experienced before. Jenna always had a way of twisting things to make herself look like the victim. She said the post was ruining her life, but the truth was, she'd been ruining her own life long before I hit upload. Then my parents jumped in, as expected. My dad called first, his voice tight with anger. He didn't even ask me how I was doing or why I'd posted it. He went straight to defending Jenna. "You need to take that post down. Do you realize what you've done to your sister's reputation?" He barked, as if Jenna's reputation was my responsibility. I told him Jenna should have thought about that before spray painting my house. Dad wasn't having it. He started throwing around phrases like family unity and we need to stick together. I could almost hear Mom coaching him in the background. They acted like I was tearing the family apart, ignoring the fact that Jenna had been doing that for years. I stayed calm and told Dad that if Jenna wanted the post down, she knew what to do. I wasn't budging. Later that day, Mom called. She tried a different tactic, hitting me with the guilt trip. She started crying, saying, "I never thought you'd do something like this. You're better than this." Better than what? Standing up for myself? She admitted they treated Jenna and me differently growing up but then said, "We've tried so hard to fix things with you, and this is how you repay us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Fix things? They'd ignored me for years, excused Jenna's behavior, and now they were playing the victim. I told her that if she wanted to fix things, she could start by holding Jenna accountable. She kept sobbing, saying I was being unfair. I let her cry it out, but I didn't change my mind. The comments on the post kept rolling in, and eventually, some of Jenna's old friends chimed in. They brought up things I didn't even know about, girls' fights she'd started, scams she'd run, and other shady behavior. The more people talked, the clearer it became that Jenna's reputation wasn't something I'd ruined, she'd done that all on her own. At this point, Jenna was desperate. She sent me another message, this one angrier than the last. She accused me of being a wannabe martyr, said I was blowing things out of proportion, and even called me jealous. Jealous of what? Her debt? Her drama? I didn't respond. Engaging with her felt like pouring gasoline on a fire. Then things escalated. My uncle called and tried to play mediator again. "Listen," he said, his tone way too calm for my liking, "Jenna's struggling right now. You have no idea what this post is doing to her." Struggling? I shot back, "She vandalized my house, and you're worried about her feelings? Maybe she should have thought about that before grabbing a spray can." My uncle sighed, clearly frustrated. "It's not just about her, you know. Your dad's reputation is on the line too. People are starting to talk." That part got my attention. I hadn't even thought about how this might blow back on my dad. He'd spent years covering for Jenna, and now it was catching up to him. But instead of feeling bad, I felt vindicated. For once, their perfect little facade was cracking. The next day, Jenna showed up at my house, pounding on the door hard enough to wake the neighbors. I opened it, and before she could push her way in, I stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "What do you want, Jenna?" I asked, keeping my tone firm. "We need to talk," she said, trying to sidestep me. "You're not coming in." "Say whatever you have to say right here," I replied, standing my ground. She looked annoyed but didn't argue. Fine. That post, you need to take it down now. I crossed my arms. Not happening. Her frustration was written all over her. She glanced behind me, as if weighing her chances of barging past. You've ruined everything. My life, my reputation. Do you even care? Did you care about my house when you vandalized it? Did you care about my life or reputation then? I asked, holding her gaze. She threw her hands in the air. This isn't fair. You don't know what I've been through. I took a step forward, closing the gap. You're right, I don't. But that's not my problem, Jenna. You made your choices, and now you're dealing with the consequences. Her eyes darted to the side, looking for something to latch onto. I saw her glance at a flower pot on my porch, her hand twitching like she might grab it. Before she could, I stepped in front of it. Don't even think about it. She let out a sharp breath, then took a step back, clearly frustrated. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? Sitting here in your perfect little house, acting like your life is so great. I don't think I'm better than anyone, Jenna. But I'm not the one who showed up at your house and started causing problems. You don't get to make a mess and then blame me for the cleanup. Her mouth opened, then closed, like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Finally, she turned toward the driveway. You'll regret this, she said over her shoulder before slamming the gate shut behind her. I stood there for a moment, watching her storm off. I wasn't angry, not anymore. I just felt tired. Jenna had spent years trying to pull me into her chaos, but this time, I wasn't letting her. If she wanted to fix her life, that was on her. My job was to protect mine. Later that night, I got a call from my uncle. He sounded panicked. Jenna's talking about legal action, he said. She thinks if she sues you, you'll cave. Let her try, I said. She's got no case. That's what I told her, but she's not listening, my uncle replied. She's out of control, and your parents aren't helping. They're still trying to protect her, I sighed, feeling the weight of it all. That's their problem, not mine. I'm done cleaning up their messes. The showdown wasn't just between Jenna and me, it was me versus my entire family dynamic. I'd been the scapegoat for years, the one who was supposed to quietly accept being ignored and mistreated. But now, I had a voice, and I wasn't about to give it up. The next few days were quiet, almost too quiet. Jenna stopped messaging me, and my parents didn't show up again. I figured they were regrouping, trying to come up with a new plan. But I didn't care since unexpected scandals started revealing a few days after my uncle's call. My hunch was confirmed. My post had gained even more traction, and the comments were relentless. People were sharing it, dissecting the security footage, and even digging up more dirt on Jenna. It was like the internet had decided to be my personal investigator. Some of the stories coming to light were shocking, even to me. Apparently, Jenna had been involved in more than just vandalism. People were coming forward with tales of unpaid debts, shady business deals, and even accusations of drug dealing. Someone shared a screenshot of a group chat where Jenna had been bragging about getting away with things because of Dad's connections. That screenshot went viral, and suddenly, the story wasn't just about me, it was about a corrupt system that protected people like Jenna. The fallout hit my parents hard. Dad's reputation, which he'd built over decades as a respected officer, was crumbling. His name was being dragged into every comment thread, with people accusing him of covering up Jenna's messes for years, and honestly, they weren't wrong. Dad had enabled Jenna his entire life, bending the rules to shield her from consequences. Now it was all catching up to him. Mom wasn't handling it well either. She'd always been the emotional one, but this was different. I heard through a relative that she'd started seeing a therapist, which, frankly, was long overdue. Jenna, predictably, was in full meltdown mode. The last I heard, she was staying with a friend, trying to lay low. She deleted all her social media accounts, probably to avoid the barrage of messages calling her out. But it was too late. The damage was done, and everyone knew what kind of person she really was. Then the legal consequences started piling up. Someone had anonymously reported Jenna's vandalism to the police, and since the footage was already public, there wasn't much Dad could do to intervene. Jenna was arrested and charged, not just for vandalizing my house but for several other incidents that had come to light through the post. The cherry on top? The accusations of drug dealing were serious enough to warrant an investigation. Jenna's reckless behavior was finally catching up to her, and there was no escaping it this time. For me, the fallout was oddly validating. I'd spent years being told I was overreacting, that I was too sensitive, that I needed to let things go. But now the truth was out there, and people were finally seeing what I'd been dealing with. Relatives who'd stayed neutral or sided with my parents started reaching out to apologize. Even strangers on the internet were rooting for me, sending messages of support and encouragement. But a few days later, I got a call from Aunt Linda. Her tone was sharp, almost accusatory. "Your post is causing drama," she said, like I hadn't noticed. "Your parents are beside themselves, and Jen is devastated. Maybe you should think about taking it down for the sake of family peace." I let her words hang in the air for a second before replying. "Have you even seen the footage, Aunt Linda?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. There was a pause. "I don't need to," she said defensively. "This is a private matter. Airing dirty laundry online only makes things worse for everyone." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even with all the evidence, some people still wanted to protect Jenna. It wasn't about right or wrong to them. It was about keeping the family's image intact. Well, maybe if Jenna thought about that before vandalizing my house, we wouldn't be having this conversation, I shot back. Linda sighed, clearly frustrated. "You're not helping, you know. Your parents are under so much stress, and this isn't going to fix anything." "And coddling Jenna will?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. "I'm not taking the post down, Linda. If you're more worried about appearances than what Jenna actually did, that's on you, but don't expect me to play along." She muttered something under her breath and hung up, leaving me shaking my head. It was wild to me that, even after seeing the proof, some people still thought I was the problem. Despite how others saw it, the real problem was that my parents still couldn't see the bigger picture. They kept blaming me for everything, insisting that if I'd just taken the post down, none of this would have happened. It was maddening. Jenna had made her own bed, and yet somehow, I was the villain for refusing to clean up her mess. Since they chose their side, they had to deal with the consequences. The other night, I got a text from my uncle. "Your dad lost his job today," it read. I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. Dad's involvement in covering up Jenna's antics had finally caught up to him, and the department had no choice but to let him go. Part of me felt sorry for him. He'd worked hard for that career, but another part knew this was the only way he'd ever learn. He'd spent years enabling Jenna, and now he was paying the price. Mom tried calling me that same night, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready to deal with her tears or her guilt trips. Instead, I sat on my couch, scrolling through the latest comments on the post. People were still sharing their own stories of dealing with toxic family members, and it was comforting to know I wasn't alone. For so long, I'd felt like the odd one out, like I was the problem. But now I realized I wasn't. I was just the only one brave enough to stand up to Jenna and my parents. The next day, I got another message, this time from one of Jenna's old friends. They thanked me for exposing Jenna, saying they'd been taken advantage of by her for years. "It's about time someone called her out," the message read. That hit me hard. Jenna hadn't just hurt me, she'd hurt so many people, and my post had given them the courage to speak up. Eventually, Jenna's case went to court. She pleaded not guilty, of course, but the evidence was overwhelming. Between the security footage, the group chat screenshots, and the testimonies from people she'd wronged, there was no way she was getting out of this. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in prison with no chance of parole. It was a harsh sentence, but one she deserved. As for my parents, they'd gone quiet after the sentencing. I imagine they were embarrassed, maybe even angry, but there was no more denying the truth. Their golden child had turned into a disaster of their own making. Dad's career was over, Mom's emotional state was fragile at best, and their once perfect family image was shattered. It wasn't the outcome I'd hoped for when I first posted the footage, but I can't say I was surprised. Enabling someone like Jenna always comes with consequences. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my work. My business was thriving, and I wasn't about to let family drama derail that. But as much as I wanted to leave everything in the past, there were reminders I couldn't ignore. Relatives who'd stayed quiet during the height of the drama started reaching out, offering support and sharing their own grievances about Jenna and my parents. Some apologized for not speaking up sooner, while others just wanted to vent. It was validating but also exhausting. Everyone seemed to have a story about how Jenna had wronged them or how my parents had let it happen. One day, I got a letter in the mail from Mom. It was long and handwritten, full of apologies for how things had turned out, for how she and Dad had treated me, and for not stepping in when Jenna's behavior got out of hand. But even as I read her words, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She didn't take responsibility for enabling Jenna. She didn't acknowledge the years of neglect I'd endured. It felt like a surface-level apology, one designed to ease her guilt rather than truly make amends. Jenna, on the other hand, had stayed completely silent. I hadn't heard a word from her since her sentencing, and I didn't expect to. Whatever relationship we might have had was long gone, and I was okay with that. Jenna had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. I didn't owe her anything, not my forgiveness, not my understanding, and certainly not my time. As the months turned into a year, I focused on building a life that felt true to me. I traveled more, met new people, and even started dating again. It wasn't easy letting my guard down after everything I'd been through, but I was determined not to let my family's dysfunction define me. I deserved better, and for the first time in my life, I was giving that to myself. Looking back, it's hard to believe how much has changed. The person I was before all of this, the one who stayed quiet, who let Jenna an unwavering commitment to protecting my peace and reclaiming my narrative. The scars from my family's dysfunction are still there, but they no longer define me. I've learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my own well-being, and to stand firm in the face of manipulation. The post remains online, not out of spite, but as a reminder of my resilience, a digital monument to the moment I chose myself over the chaos. As I move forward, I'm excited about the possibilities. My business continues to grow, and I'm exploring new opportunities that I never would have considered before. I've reconnected with old friends who've shown me what real support looks like, and I'm building new relationships grounded in mutual respect. The future feels wide open, and for the first time, I'm writing my own story without the weight of my family's expectations dragging me down. To anyone reading this who's dealing with toxic family dynamics, I want to say this: you're not alone. It's okay to set boundaries, to walk away, to choose yourself. It's not selfish, it's survival. And sometimes, standing up for yourself means shining a light on the truth, no matter how messy it gets.